You know, you have to realize that when you're starting, not everybody is going to like what you're creating, and it is a very vulnerable place to not focus on the negative. Focus on the people that you have an impact on and the people that are, you know, you're really connecting with. I will say it's important to let things sink in so that you appreciate, you know, what you're doing. That's why you're doing it in the first place, trying to chase a dream. Success is to be able to continue doing what you love. As long as you're loving what you're doing, I think that is the definition of success.
Welcome to the Grit.org podcast with Colby Harris and Brian Harbin. In these episodes, they speak to top achievers in athletics and business to understand the habits and mindset they apply in order to build more grit.
All right, welcome back to the Grit.org podcast. My name's Colby Harris. Alongside me, as always, is Brian Harbin, and we're here with today's guest, Dillon Basse. Dillon, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, lead singer of Flipturn. They're from Fernandina Beach, kind of Jacksonville area. Really been on the rise recently. So, tell us a little bit, Dillon. You know, just got off like 8 weeks of touring?
Yeah, 8 weeks straight of touring in a van, playing shows. Definitely the longest we've been out. So very happy to be home. But yeah, pretty much just back from a 2 month long tour. Yeah,
pretty electric time. My brother and sister actually caught you once in DC and then up in New York also.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, very cool. Those are some fun shows. The East Coast shows are always some of my favorites. So
yeah,
cool.
I know that's definitely kind of been where you guys have spent a lot of your time. So we're super stoked to have Dillon here today, our first musician on the podcast. So
cool.
Yeah, really excited to get your perspective for everything. So go ahead and just take us back to the beginning, man. I mean, I know you spent a lot of your time being raised in Fernandina, but tell us a little bit about your upbringing and kind of where all this started.
Right, so I actually moved to, I don't know if we knew each other yet, but I moved to Fernandina when I was 15, so a freshman in high school. So yeah, I did grow up in Fernandina, but I actually lived in Massachusetts for most of my life. My mom was an Irish fiddle player, so like there's a big Irish community up, you know, near Boston, and when she would go to these like Irish sessions, you know, pub sessions at like bars and stuff, and people would bring instruments and jam, and you know, she'd bring me in like a little baby carriage, and she'd put me under the table so no beer would be spilt on me or anything like that. But I kind of just, you know, would take it all in and grew up through that, and you know, started wanting to be a part of, you know, the music scene and everything. But yeah, she kind of just really threw me into music ever since I was really, really little.
So it all started up in Massachusetts, which is what I thought, because, you know, I've known you for a long time now.
Yeah.
What kind of led you guys to Fernandina and making that decision to move down there?
My mom got remarried, and my stepdad had a house down here, but he grew up in Massachusetts, and we were looking to move anyway, but I think, you know, she wanted to give her kids a new, you know, maybe some new possibilities, you know, a new outlook on things. And we had, you know, Florida was an option, and all four of us had to agree. You know, they weren't just going to take us down, but me and my brothers and sisters were like, yeah, Florida, let's check it out. So actually, one of the main reasons I wanted to go was because of baseball, because, you know, baseball was a huge part of my life for so long. And, you know, it's 365 days a year, you know, nice weather, you know, baseball was definitely a goal.
Definitely stoked to spend some time talking about that today, too.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely circle back to baseball, but so oldest of three siblings, any other siblings that were really into music as well?
Yeah, there was, four of us all together. So Jesse, he's my youngest brother, and then Bonnie and Lily, my two sisters. They all kind of got into music a little bit. You know, my mom definitely made everybody play something at some point. But everybody kind of, I think I was the one that stuck with it a little more, you know, got more emotionally attached to it. But they can all play. Jesse, underrated piano player. Very good, yeah. So.
Yeah, he's got those huge hands.
I know, yeah. He kind of took the whole basketball thing and ran with that, but he could play, yeah.
Yeah, I know Brian would love to. I mean, if you saw Jesse, his little brother, I mean, he's twice the size of either of us.
It's crazy.
I mean, he was a starter as a freshman, already dunking. Huge kid. Even, again, you know, so I went to Fernandina, for everyone listening, so I've been very familiar with Dillon for a long time. Dillon played at my junior prom through a little surprise. guys.
Bonnie's senior prom.
Yep,
right?
yep. But I remember, like Bonnie was in one of my math classes, and she'd like jokingly sing, and I'd be like, do that again. Like, do that again. I could hear it. So I could definitely understand that they had a little bit of that in them too.
She'll love that if she ever listens to this.
Oh, I've told her. Yeah, give her a little ego boost right there. But tell us a little bit more too about that shift. Like you said, I mean, you kind of traded out the snowboard for a surfboard. Now you're at the beach, and I guess your parents had just gone through a divorce and things like that too. So how was that? What effect did you feel like that had on you, or was it really kind of an exciting experience to try to transition into a new life?
It was. I'm really glad that I had that experience when I was younger. It made like meeting people when I was older actually a lot easier. Because most kids, I had a whole friend group in Massachusetts, and that was a really hard thing to leave. Was a lot of my friends up there, but when I moved down here, I was kind of thrown into a high school where everybody was already friends and grew up friends, and so I kind of had to come out of my shell a little bit and meet people that way. So that was a big thing that I'm really thankful for, that helped me, I think, later in life. But also, it was a big cultural change. I had to learn how to say yes ma'am, yes sir. That was a huge thing. I remember Coach Purvis would get on me, especially a lot at baseball practice if I didn't say yes sir, and so I had to get into that, and that also gave me a little more perspective about everything's a little different everywhere you go. You kind of, if you grow up and live one or just see one part of the world for so long, you kind of create a bubble around yourself, and you think that that's the world that you live in. It's not. So that was another thing I was very thankful to learn at a young age, for sure.
And tell us when you kind of jumped into music for yourself, whether there was a first instrument or what age you started.
So I was about 4 years old. Like I said, my mom would bring me to these sessions, and I was about 4 years old when I wanted to pick up an instrument of my own. It was an Irish drum. It's called a bodhrán. It's like it's hard. I can't. Most people, you might know it if you see it, but no, when you say the name, people are like, what's that?
It's part of that Irish music culture.
It's. You ever seen Titanic, or the scene where they're all playing music down in the third class and the guy's playing like a drum like this? That's what it is. It's. And I don't know. That was the first thing I told my mom I wanted to play. I saw that and I was like, that's what I want to do, and that's kind of got me into feeling rhythm. That's where I learned a lot of rhythm and timing and feel. Was through that instrument. And then when I was 11, and that's when my parents were getting divorced, a friend of my mom's just gave her like this beautiful 1945 Gibson guitar, and we kind of like one of her, at the time I was young, but realizing now that was like a big coping thing for her, and together we kind of taught each other how to play, just by learning simple chords and writing songs, so that's really when I started like writing music, was like around 11, 10 years old, just with the guitar a friend gave to my mom. So yeah,
that's awesome, man. Yeah, and I can definitely feel you there. I don't know if we've ever really talked about it, but same with me. I moved to Fernandina in 6th grade.
Nice. Okay.
My brother Chase, he was a freshman in high school.
Yeah. Really?
Parents divorced, and we moved down there. So same situation.
Crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah. From North Carolina, so definitely I'll see him very soon, and I'm excited to tell him about it too, because I know that was one of his big struggles. When we moved down here, was just being in that culture where you were raised with those old friends, and now it's time to kind of reset your entire livelihood. So circling back to baseball and kind of the other things you did outside of music, tell us a little bit more about playing baseball growing up, and then you continued to play all 4 years of high school, if I'm not wrong. So tell us a little bit more about your baseball career and just kind of what you loved about playing sports.
For a long time, baseball, my family was a big sports baseball family. My uncle was drafted out of high school. My grandfather was absolutely loved coaching, loved the sport, brought me up through it. My whole family just very like baseball family. We had the Boston Red Sox. It's like one of the it's a good team to root for. When you're growing up, they're always winning and stuff. So for a long time I thought that's what I wanted to do. I was. You asked me what I wanted to be when I was little. I was either going to be a rock star, or I was going to go play professional baseball, and that's crazy, obviously. But those are my two passions when I was little, and I thought baseball was going to be it for sure. And I don't know. I loved the team aspect of it. I loved the competition, just the sport itself. There's, baseball is very romanticized in America, kind of grow up with all the movies and stuff. But yeah, I had a very, very, just a big love for baseball. And it wasn't until like my, maybe I think junior or senior year of high school where I was like, I think I'm a little better at the other thing. Maybe I'll try to go with that. But,
that Red Sox culture stuck with you though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Big fan of the Sox. Go Sox.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, so about junior year, you kind of made the decision, okay, I'm better at music. Mm-hmm. Was there a certain performance, or were there any performances in high school that kind of helped lead you to that decision of like, okay, this is an area I can really go all in? This wasn't like the defining moment of when I knew that I wanted to go with music, but there was a defining moment when I knew that maybe like I wanted to try something else, and it was I think it was going into my senior year of high school. That summer there was a production put on by I think it was I can't remember the name of the club, but there was a musical pretty much happening, and I'd never gotten into it. I'd always wanted to. I always thought it was really cool, musicals, and I didn't really tell anybody that. When you don't want to tell people, especially not the kids on the baseball team. Do not want to tell
Definitely
people.
Definitely not the lunch table.
No, that is not the discussion. And so I was very intrigued by it, and I got into it and went to a few rehearsals and tryouts for this musical, and I realized that I really, really enjoyed it. And when I got the part, I auditioned and I got the part to be in this musical. I realized that I was gonna have to, I wouldn't be able to do both. I wouldn't be able to play summer ball, and I would not, at the same time as, rehearsing for this play. So I had to go up to Coach Rowland. Do you know Coach Rowland? And he's a very, old-fashioned, hard-nosed baseball guy. I love him so much, but I remember I had to look him in the eyes and tell him that I was going to be in a musical this summer, and I wasn't going to play baseball. And he was kind of looked at me, he's like, what? So there was a moment where I started to realize it was okay to, start pursuing, something else, and that wasn't to say I hadn't been, how I got through high school was, I didn't have like a regular job. My mom and I would play gigs at bars around Fernandina, Drain Turtle, Salty Pelican, places like that, would do covers, and I'd, obviously play some originals and stuff. And so it was like a passion of mine that I wanted to pursue, but it wasn't until I feel like then that I realized it's okay for me to do this. It's going to be fine. I think this is the right direction to go in. Yeah. So
what was the part in the musical that you had?
It wasn't even a big part. Like it was, I was a quartet member. The play was Music Man, and there's this like barbershop quartet, and I got like I have a higher range of singing, so I got one of the higher ranged guys, and I don't know, I only had a few speaking lines, and I got to sing a few songs, but I was like, this is so cool, like I really, really liked it, so yeah.
No, I can definitely understand. That kind of leads us right into my next question I wanted to talk about, because I feel like speaking is something that follows you wherever you go. Like if you have that ability to get on stage, like I was the student body president in high school, and that's that's what started what you're seeing today. It's just being able to get in front of people and have conversations and perform and kind of make people laugh. I really found a passion for that. So the first thing that schools now though kind of tend to deteriorate is the things like the arts programs, whether it's like physical arts or the musicals, whatever it might be. So tell us a little bit about why you think it's important that they uphold these programs and they keep offering these opportunities that could create the next Dillon Basse essentially.
I think it's really, really important to have arts programs. Sports, I will always advocate for sports. It's, keeps you healthy, keeps you competitive. I think it's, it teaches you a lot of things about life before you're thrown into real life. But the other thing is how many kids are going to go off and be a professional athlete, with art, I think it's, not to say that everybody's going to go off and have a crazy successful art career, but it really opens up expressing, to this day, like, I love music mostly because it is a form of self-therapy in a way, and it really, really allows you to express so much of yourself. And I think that's really cool. On a team, on a sports team, it's very, there's this great unity, but there's one, not to say all sports are team sports, but I feel like sometimes you're able to express more of who you are as a person through arts in a way. And I think people, the earlier they learn that in life, the better, I think that would help a lot of mental problems, or like mental trauma maybe later in life, just being able to show who you are and like learn things about yourself at a younger age.
Absolutely. And really just the creativity, the working with a blank slate, whereas with sports, like you said, you kind of have certain things you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So tell us about the genesis of Flipturn, the name, how you recruited other band members. Tell us about how all that started.
So me, Madeline, and Tristan, we were all the Fernandina members, and I remember Tristan and Madeline, they had, they'd been friends, they'd been in Fernandina for longer than I had, and they had always kind of, had this idea to like want to start playing music. And, when I moved to Fernandina, I met Madeline first, and then therefore was introduced to Tristan, and they had this, we became friends, but, we all knew we liked similar music, but it wasn't until like, I think junior or senior year, around the same time the musical happened, that they kind of hit me up, and they were like, we all play music, why don't we try to jam sometime? I remember that they were at a Starbucks, and they gave me a call, and they were like, hey, like, you want to come meet us for coffee? We have this, idea. And, drove over. It was when Starbucks was over at the, near like Fancy Sushi. I don't know if you remember that, but drove over there, and we, they pitched me the idea, and we kind of joked, and we were like, wouldn't it be funny if we like had music on Spotify, or like had, like played like a show or something, wouldn't you? Just kind of joked about that, and then, kind of got into it, started jamming a little bit, and liked what we were making. We just would do covers at first, and once we started doing original material, not everything sticks, but, people really seemed to latch onto it and like it, and we're like, well, if people are liking this, we should keep doing it. And that's kind of where it got its start. The name is actually from Madeline's parents. She was a swimmer in high school, and a flip turn is actually the move you do when you turn around in a pool and you kind of like head back. So we were just looking for names, and they pitched that one, and we were like, oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's something that shows your originality of the band in a way. I don't know. I just kind of just stuck. Some names you just have to like stick, and you're like, that's cool. So.
You could come up with probably some deep philosophical reason it's Flipturn if you had to. I think it's really cool to remember that you guys were all kind of together at that time. So I mean, right as you were leaving baseball, going into senior year, you guys started performing. Like I said, you even performed at your own graduation, which is something I remember very closely because I was there. I actually witnessed that one. But tell us a little bit more about what you were going through as you finished out senior year. What was going to be next? What was your plan? And kind of what were your aspirations at that time as you were about to leave high school?
Obviously I knew that we knew music was the band is what we still wanted to do. We, all talked about it, and we were like, we're going to try and make this work through college. Madeline went to University of Florida. I went to Jacksonville University, and then Tristan went to University of North Florida. And me and Tristan would, our first few years, or Madeline actually would drive to Fernandina. We'd all meet up on weekends and practice and write. And then our junior year of college, me and Tristan both moved to Gainesville just to keep things going, just because we'd built up. Gainesville was huge for our start. That's Jacksonville, Fernandina, that's really where we started, but like our first like fan base really started in Gainesville, and that's kind of where we started to get some momentum. Was there.
So I'm curious, one of the things with art, like you're talking about, obviously there's a ton of benefits, but you're also kind of putting yourself out there. How do you feel like you dealt early on with, obviously you have your fans and the people that like the music, but people that don't like the music, how do you feel like you were able to kind of deal and overcome with that?
That's an awesome question, because that is something that I feel like not too many people too many artists I hear talk about. But that is a really cool question. And I think that there is that, obviously, just it teaches you to deal with rejection in a way. When you do realize, you have to realize that when you're starting, is that not everybody is going to like what you're creating, and it is a very vulnerable place. But I think it's taught us a lot how to not focus on the negative, like focus on the people that you have an impact on, and the people that are, you're really connecting with, and that is why you're performing. That is why you are making this, this is why you continue to do this. What makes it so awesome is the impact and the connection you have with people. And that's so much more important, I think, than the people that are like, oh, I don't really like this. And you're like, all right, that's cool. I don't like some music. That's dope. Whatever. It's kind of, it teaches you, I feel like, not to focus on that. And I will say it is, a challenge to overcome sometimes when if you see that somebody like maybe didn't like didn't like the music or something like that, and that's okay. It teaches you to just keep going and doing it for the people that really, really are connecting to it.
And I was curious too, was there some constructive criticism along the way that you think helped kind of change or redirect?
Definitely. And I think a lot of the self criticism, I'd say it's self criticism. Okay. A lot of it. The older you get, the more music you intake, the more you really find what kind of music you want to create, and the more you mature. And I think a lot of it was always trying to create something better than what you previously made. And that I think has been our constant motivation and driving, is always always try to outdo yourself. And that I think we've had some success with. I think, for sure, at least from my standpoint, I'm always happier with, I always think the next thing we make is always better than the last thing we made.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that, because I remember even last year it was one of the first times I came and saw you at Jackrabbits. I just ran into you randomly over at High Tide, and you were like, hey, we're throwing a show. I remember I just came out to that show. I went with only one other person. We were just coming to jam, and I didn't know anyone else in the crowd, but the whole time I felt so electric, like watching you up there doing your thing, and we were just now, in the foothills of starting this, and it just gave me so much perspective and respect coming in to do something like this, where it was the exact same thing in a way. Mm-hmm. We only have a few hundred listeners. I know you guys got a couple million now, but
starting anything, it is always, you always got to start from zero, always.
Yeah.
That's it is kind of the same thing. Absolutely. 100%.
I just the kind of the evolution, like you said, like having that self-awareness, I think is huge. So tell us more about that time you spent in Gainesville, because kind of that, I guess, would lead you into graduating in 2016 to the release of Citrona, your first album, in 2018. Yep. So tell us a little bit more about that time in Gainesville, growing your following and working on producing that first album as well.
Yeah, I think that was another, time where we were just trying to outdo the last project the first ever project we put out was Heavy Colors, and that was an EP we put out in 2017. And I remember Citrona, it was always just like, all right, this is the sound that we like. We're gonna just keep, finding our way. And a lot of that was just self-actualization, realizing things about yourself, and I know Citrona itself was a lot about home, was a lot about Fernandina. That's, the feelings and the connections we had made there, and our upbringing in Fernandina. But yeah, in Gainesville,
got to be a grind with those shows, man. Just all the time.
Tristan would have. I remember Tristan would have classes at like 8 a.m. the day after shows in Gainesville, and we wouldn't get out of there until like 1 or 2. He would get home at like 3 a.m. and then have to like sleep for a few hours and then go to class. Like, it was a lot of. That is what I'll say absolutely about our time in Gainesville. It was just doing whatever opportunities we were given. Taking the most, every opportunity, trying to grow, and as with everything we could. Just kind of
just grinding it out, honestly. Doing a lot of the little things and a lot of the sleep deprivation, which there's still a lot of that. We're still grinding.
Grind don't stop.
It doesn't, and I absolutely, it does not. But that specific time, I think we were just we want to do this so bad, and we're going to keep trying to do, whatever we can to make it work.
So there had to have been a point where you guys hit a wall where you're grinding so hard, maybe weren't seeing the results that you wanted. Was there a moment where you guys thought about, stopping, slowing down, and then what helped you kind of push through?
The wall was, we realized why maybe we weren't getting the outcome we wanted, and we knew we had to make more sacrifices, I would say. It was going into our senior year. We'd already moved to Gainesville, but Tristan dropped out of college. Me and Madeline switched to online classes because we knew that what attracted people most to our music and to our band was our live show, and we knew we had to tour. We had to get on the road. We had to put this out in front of people, and we made a lot of sacrifices to make sure that that's what we were going to do, and that's what we did. We just went out and played as many shows as we possibly could, and we're still playing as many shows as we possibly can, kind of in that same mindset, but we knew what we had to do. You knew exactly what moves you had to make, and they're not easy moves to make. We had to talk to our families, hey, Mom, I'm going to go online, or I'm going to drop out of school, and then they weren't easy conversations, but we did it, and I think it paid off, for sure.
Would you say that's probably the scariest part about what someone in your position does, is having to make those decisions? It kind of is a leap into the unknown.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, anxiety can be, I really didn't understand what anxiety was until, making some of these decisions. So it is very, very, very scary, I will say. But I had so much, I don't know, maybe I listened to too many motivational speakers when I was, or like too many movies, watched too many things, but I was so just wanting to do whatever it meant to make, my dream possible, and I'm still doing that. I wouldn't say that I've reached a point where I'm like, oh yeah, I've made it. They're still doing everything that I possibly can. Everybody in the band is doing everything they can to just fulfill that dream they have in their head. It's a definitely more of a kid's dream. I told you, that wanted to be a musician when I was
rock star. Rock star, not a musician. We want to be a rock star,
right? And that's the little kid dream, and something just I was not gonna let that fade in a way. And I don't know what it was that made me not want to let it fade, but I think everybody was on the same page and was like, we're gonna might as well just give it your all, Yeah. So, yeah.
And basically, you mean getting in front of more people, expanding your audience. But in order to do that, obviously you gotta travel more, spend more. So how did you guys? Was it everybody kind of pay their own way kind of thing?
Yeah, on? We didn't. Nobody for a long time, and still a little bit today. Nobody, everything we made from the band would always just go into one big fund, and that would always be for gas money, for for hotels, for staying. We'd sleep on people's floors, couches. Now we can afford to stay in a hotel every night. But at the very beginning, definition of just very.
Who do you know in Charlotte, right?
Literally, we would put out. We'd call family members, maybe that we haven't talked to in a long time, be like, hey, I know I haven't talked to you in years, but can I crash on your couch? Yeah. Stuff like that, just kind of putting everything into it, not taking any money or anything personally, just putting everything into one big fund to keep this going. So that's pretty much what we did to support that, traveling wise, yeah.
So up to that point now, I mean, you guys have been rocking shows around Fernandina. Everyone loves you there. Gainesville has definitely taken notice. You could go play any show there, get a couple hundred people out there. Awesome. Now you're starting to do some more traveling, probably 2019, 2018. Tell us, was there a moment that you feel like you had a like specific big break moment, or was there a certain show that was bigger than the most you had done up to that point? Or because I definitely feel like there was a tipping point for you guys where over the last 2 years, I mean, you guys have really started to blow up big time. So do you feel like kind of heading into 2020 or maybe even later after that there's been a moment that really helped you guys catapult to where you're at now?
I say this mostly, maybe it's like ignorance and maybe not realizing, or maybe not self-realizing, but I still would say we haven't had, our like big break, or I just will never say that we've made it. I just can't, it doesn't, I think that, slowly, what I do like about our band and our group is that it's always like a slow, build, but it's never like a huge jump or a huge loss in, fans or listeners or people that are going to shows. It's always been a slow climb. And I really like that it's been that way, but I wouldn't say there's been like a defining like, oh, we made it. It's always just been like the next step. Oh, what do we have to do next? What do we have to do next? What's the next goal? And it's always, you have to hit, that goal. And if you fall short, you're aiming for bigger goals, so if you fall short of that, you're still trying to land somewhere, just as long as it's just growing. And I'd say that because of that mindset that we've had, just to keep it constantly growing and trying to keep the, foot on the gas, we've been able to do some cool things. This tour that we just went on, definitely the most people we've played in front of headlining for sure. And it's cool when you play a big venue and you're like, oh, whoa, like last time we were here, we were playing to maybe a fourth of this many people, But yeah, no, I wouldn't, I don't, and I don't really want to have that ever realization, maybe one day, where I can.
Well, it's one of those things too, man. I mean, you understand. I mean, in the age of music that we live in, like you could be the #1 charting artist for 3 weeks, and then your name could never be mentioned again.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So I mean,
absolutely,
definitely could go either way.
Yeah, I definitely, and I don't want. I mean, that's what I mean by I don't want to have that realization. I want to constantly be wanting the next thing,
Yeah, no, I think it's healthy too, man. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I think I've taken in perspective in the same way as like when you start patting yourself on the back, when you think it's okay to let off the gas.
Yeah, that's dangerous. And I think that's,
definitely. Getting high on your own supply a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good to take it in. I won't say that like if you're playing. We played some really cool. We had some really cool opportunities this summer. We played some really big festivals and we played in front of a lot of people. And it's very important. Something that I forget, and sometimes bandmates will have to remind me, is to like take it in. Don't, because I will constantly be stressed or freaking out about making sure that everything goes well, and I'll sometimes forget like, oh man, come on, you're doing something that you've always dreamed of doing, like let it sink in. I will say it's important to let things sink in so that you appreciate what you're doing. That's why you're doing it in the first place. You're trying to chase a dream. Make sure you understand that it's happening, trying to make it happen. Just never being like, oh, okay, I don't need to do anything else. Like this is going to take care of itself. Never having that mindset ever. But definitely it's okay to let it sink in a little bit for sure. Yeah.
So I'm really dying to ask you this question because, you hear about flow state, you experience it in sports and all these different parts. But I imagine as a musician on stage performing in front of people, like it's just got to be at a whole nother level in terms of just that feeling of not really having to think about what you're doing, but just totally embracing the moment. So is there anything that you do before the performance to kind of set you up and prime you for that? And then also when you're in that moment, can you kind of describe what that feels like?
I've been going on stage for a long time. Like I said, my mom's been, bringing me on stage even just to like play something with her because she's had gigs, and so playing in front of people has always been very, very nerve-wracking. And I used to hate getting nervous, but my mom would be like, no, being nervous is good. It means you care about what you're about to do. But to mentally prepare, I definitely usually need a good if my girlfriend's listening to this, she's gonna laugh. But like being around, sometimes I'm not always really fun to be around before a show, just because I'm a little more on edge. Yeah, you know, maybe more on edge, and you know, she'll usually try to stay clear just because I'm, you know, probably freaking out a little bit. But we have we have a ritual before every show. The band will get in a group and kind of just we have like a little funny thing where every show we pray to Prince. This is super.
I know. I can tell you're just hesitant to share this. I'm just waiting like, on the edge of my seat.
It's kind of this weird thing that we do, but it kind of like makes us all laugh and kind of calm down a little bit and like kind of get us in the zone of we're going on. And pretty much one of our member Devin will all get in a huddle and he'll just, you know, jokingly we'll pray to Prince. You know this. You know Prince. Yeah.
Right.
And it's a weird tradition that started like a year ago, but you know this just, you know, usually we'll say something, will usually make us laugh and like chill out, and then we're like, all right, cool, we're gonna go do this, you know. And it's still the anxiety, at least for me, at least like the nerves, like they kind of stay with me until you hit that first note when you step on stage, and then you realize like, well, like this is happening, you know. Like, yeah. I can't run. I can't go. You know, I can't stop this. You know, so that also kind of sinks in, and you're just like, well, I gotta go and give it. You know, and you know that, but that kind of makes the nerves go away. As you're like, well, this is happening, whether I like it or not. So you're gonna go and give your best performance. So.
And when you are singing, I mean, I guess you feel like the music probably takes you right to where you need to be. I mean, yeah. I'm always curious too, like. I mean, is there anything with a crowd that can throw you off a little bit where maybe you forget or skip a line or something that, okay, how do you kind of recuperate from that?
Every crowd is different, I would say. You know, that's another thing you learn about when you're playing and you're playing to bigger crowds and more people. But, you know, there's always, like, if there's, like, one dude in the crowd sometimes that, like, his girlfriend brought him and he's just kind of, like, sitting there, like, what's this all about? And like sometimes you'll like lock eye contact and you're like people will be jumping, enjoying the show, but like some reason that one dude is just like making you be like, what's going on?
Right,
you know?
yeah.
So sometimes that, you know, will kind of throw you off, but you know, we've learned obviously like that's another thing. Just don't focus on that dude. You know, focus on the people that are really, really enjoying it, and that's always, you know, as I've learned that's helped me have better shows, even if there's somebody in the crowd that's like being weird or whatever. I don't know.
And one other question I wanted to ask you about this, just because I'm really curious. Like, so if you had to describe what it feels like performing in front of like any certain emotions or feelings that you feel like you experience while you're up there performing.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, like when you're in front of a large crowd performing at your best, the crowd's going wild. I mean, can you kind of describe a little bit like the emotions or what that feeling feels like?
Yeah, it's
for those of us that'll never experience it.
No, it is hard to explain. But it never. I don't think it never gets old. Ever. It's constant reminder of why, you know, sometimes when you're on the road and it wears you down for sure, like mentally, physically, it's hard to keep up, you know, to take care of yourself. It definitely takes a toll. There's long drives, like very late nights, very early mornings getting to the next show. So you know, most of the time touring is not this glamorous thing, you know. It's very tiring, but you know, for that hour and a half that you're on stage and just connecting with people and playing music, and you can't really describe it, but it's a great feeling.
It's a reminder of why you do what you do.
Reminder of why you're doing it. Yeah.
Kind of just ascending into the clouds every time.
You know, like every time you're just kind of like, this is you know, why I'm doing this. This is awesome.
Well, that's what it looks like. I mean, when I watch you, I mean, you're my favorite performer to go see for sure, man. I mean, I've been to a number of bands and performers, but like, I've seen 21 Savage. Hated it, right? I hated it. I couldn't stand it. He's one of the number one rappers in the world. I hated going to his concert, right? No offense if he's listening, but watching you, I mean, it's truly enjoyable for me. Like, I'm not the guy in the crowd with his arms crossed. Like,
no, you weren't. I remember you were having a good time. Thank you.
I always try, man. Like I said, I think that's that reciprocation of respect of, like I said, for someone to go spend tens of thousands of hours to learn to play an instrument, to learn to sing, then you write the song, then you produce it, and then you get on stage. All this stuff, it's like, I think the lack of perspective for the person that just puts their earbuds in and takes the 3 minutes to listen to it is totally different.
Oh yeah, live music. Go see as many live shows as you can.
Yeah.
Live music is where it's so different and it's so awesome. I don't know. Yeah.
I totally agree. Again, and my brother's the one that got me into that because he went to Flagler. So that's a very underground music scene. Mm-hmm. And we spent a ton of time just going to like small venues. And to this day, he says like that's where he sees some of his favorite shows are like these small 50, 100 person crowds. So kind of right on the back end of that, tell us a little bit about some of your favorite performances maybe. I mean, I know you guys went out west for the first time this past year. Like you've been all the way out to Colorado to DC to New York.
Talk about favorite performances or just favorite shows. Colorado, people love live music in Colorado. Denver, Fort Collins, some of my favorite cities to play outside of Florida. Outside of Gainesville, Jacksonville, obviously is awesome. Every time, just hometown, it's hard to beat. But yeah, Denver, great times up in Denver. There's this theater called Bluebird Theater up there. Really cool spot. Everybody's just like, I don't know, super amped. Let's see. Some of my favorite shows though, one that always sticks with me was at UF when we were kind of just, it was like a release party for Citrona, I think it was at least. And we had just put out Citrona maybe like a week or two before, and we played this like intimate house show at a place called the Surf Club in it's just a house show, in Gainesville, and it was gross. We had maybe these like really crappy speakers, and our pedal boards and our amps and our guitars were getting like beer spilled on them, and it was just kind of like, but like nobody cared, it was just like this cool, you're like right here, me to you, like people, you're playing and everybody's just like super, like the energy in a room when there's like, it doesn't have to be 1,000 people, it can just be 100, 50 to 100 people like you said, and the energy in there is super fun. But I remember there's something about that, like that house show that we played, 2018 in Gainesville. It's one of my favorite shows easily. Yeah. And it was just like very, very small, like tight-knit thing.
While we're still talking about performances, there's one I wanted to ask you about too. Like you said, being from Fernandina, Jacksonville area, earlier this year they had the Bicentennial over in downtown.
That was a really fun one.
Headlined that show. I mean, there was a lot of people there for that one. I was out at that show and I didn't know what to expect or anything, but you guys headlined that show, came out at the very end. What's that like now to be able to come home to Jacksonville and have people, like I was in the crowd and I was talking to people from Gainesville, I was talking to people from Sarasota, I was talking to people from Fernandina. That's cool. What's that like for you to be able to come home to a place that it's kind of like, how do I say it? Maybe like your like organic show where it's like the people that've always come to see you play. What's that like to be able to just come home and put on a killer show like that?
Oh, it's great. It's so cool seeing family and friends in the crowd. My little brother I remember at that show was like in the very front, and that's always awesome just to see the people that have been with you since day one still there, still having a great time, still singing the songs and everything. That's really cool. Jacksonville, Fernandina, Gainesville, can't thank people enough for just constantly supporting us and helping us grow. So yeah, anytime we play there
that was there was a timeless moment, and I saw you post a picture. I was right behind Jesse at the show. Yeah, I was like right behind him, and I remember you came up off the stage, and I think it was even like, I think it might have been like his birthday that day or something. Like it was in June or May maybe. I don't know.
Well, fun fact about me and Jess, we actually had the same birthday, 9
really?
years apart. So it wasn't our birthday.
Well, he was out there, and I was talking to him because we've like played basketball together. But I remember you like came off the stage while everyone was still playing, and you were kind of like on a break on the mic. And I have 2 older brothers too, and you just kind of like the embrace for the moment. Someone even got like a really good picture of it, but. Man, that was just really cool moment for me to see again, like having older brothers, like to know you guys went from, filling around playing with toys in Massachusetts to
literally
jumping off the stage with them front row. It's a really cool thing to see.
And it's just trying to,
it's cool. Like I said, family is they're the people that have supported you since day one, and they're the people that are going to support you even when, you know, you're not at your highest. You know, he's got a game after this we're going to go see, and, you know, he's killing it in basketball. So I'm excited to go see him later tonight, and he's going to crush it. Kid's dunking already, you know, like it's nuts. He's awesome. So yeah, love Jesse very much. Yeah.
So early 2022, you guys got a record deal, right? So tell us how that came about and kind of what that looks like.
Yep, we signed with Dual Tone Records. They're based out of Nashville. Just we were kind of, you know, we since 2020 we had been, when we got home from, you know, when the pandemic hit, pretty much we had to cancel. We were in San Antonio, Texas, when we had to turn around and come back to Florida. You know, we were about to embark on a very long, you know, cross-country tour, and we were all really excited. It was going to be our first time getting out there, and that got canceled. And we had to come home, and it's just kind of weird. I don't know. You know, everybody experienced the pandemic. You know, everybody had to go through some sort of grief of something. You know, it was tough on everyone. But when we got home, it was, you know, people were like, "Oh, you must have so much time and inspiration, you know, from all this happening to write. You know, that's probably what you're all gonna do." And we're like, "I'm not inspired. Like, I was just like sad, man. You know, everybody's just kind of like bummed. You know, there was no like inspiration really or motivation to want to do a lot. You know, at least for a lot of artists that I knew as well, it was, you know, not until like later. But that initial hit was really just tough. Nobody knew what the music world was going to look like. You know, this was, you know, and we weren't where we're at now, where we can, you know, afford to hit something like that. We all had to come back and embrace the idea that maybe music wasn't going to be what we're going to do. You know, and that's a tough thing to, you know, realize. But it wasn't until like August of that year when, you know, we were like, all right, now let's try and do this. Let's try and write a record. So we went out to somewhere we went to Apache Junction, Arizona. Just found like a really cool Airbnb, just pointed to somewhere on a map, and we're like, let's go here. Let's get out of Florida. Let's go live in a cabin for a few weeks and just see what we can do. And we came up with a lot of, you know, that's where we came up with a lot of the ideas on this new album. But since then we had been, you know, writing and continuing to shape the album. And, you know, along the way we were talking about, you know, maybe we'll send this to some labels or connections that we have and see if, you know, anybody likes it. But the goal wasn't to sign to a record label. It wasn't to, you know, the goal was gonna, you know, we had our plan. You know, I think that's the coolest thing about our team is it was all independent, and we, you know, had everything laid out, you know, mapped out for what was gonna happen. And I remember we put out a few singles even. We were still independent, and we were still sending it to people, you know, sending the rest of the music to some people, and the people at Dual Tone were like, this, you know, we really like this. You know, let's see if we can make something work. And, you know, so we started talking for a few months, and I don't know, we, you know, thought that they were a great fit. You know, they're a smaller team, and we, you know, like that a lot. Like I said, you know, always we've had from the ground up, you know, surrounded ourselves with people that are very passionate about our music. And they seemed like a good fit. So very, very stoked to be with Dual Tone. Yeah.
And then basically, just so they have like a bird's eye view of how they work, do they help set up all the shows? I mean, are they basically kind of the business side of helping run it, or?
No, I mean, they've definitely added this aspect. Through Dual Tone, we've been able to meet a lot of really cool people in the industry, and they've been able to get our music out to a lot more people. And that's the reason for sure that we went with it. You know, we want to make sure this record gets in front of as many people as we can, and Dual Tone seemed like the best way to do that. But no, before that, we would, you know, all our business and all our booking shows was still all through our team that we have at Atlas Touring. Huge shout out to them. They've, you know, helped us in so many ways. Caleb Coker and Sam Heekin, those are our managers, and they've, you know, just this team that we have really was going to be, you know, we were going to continue to go without the label. But yeah, I mean what they've really been able to do, Dual Tone, is just get our music out in front of more people than we would have without them. So that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, we've just got a few more questions. I'm gonna kind of shift these last few around while we're talking about this, because I think you've used the word team a lot, whether we're talking about baseball or your family or your managers or just the band itself. You're the lead singer. You kind of have to be the mediator at the same time. Maybe sometimes you're the diva. You play every part probably.
It's a stereotype, right? I'm sure it's somewhere in there. Yeah.
It's it all kind of just happens that way. But tell us what has it been like for you to embrace the team, build the team, what value you've found in having a team, just this entire group of people, family, friends, managers, that makes Flipturn possible, not just for you, but for the entire band.
Yeah, that is since day one what Flipturn is, and why we've been able to have a little bit of, call it maybe a little bit of success here and there. It's strictly because everybody is working together, and there is no one person being like, oh, this is what's going to happen, y'all are coming with me. Everybody plays a role. Everybody, it is very much an equal drive of everybody being very passionate about the project and wanting what's best for it. There's really no it is so much a collaborative effort, and I really think that's why we've been able to keep going, for sure. Nobody has taken charge in something and been like, this is how it's going to be, my way or the highway type thing. It's everybody's collaborating, even outside of the artistic standpoint. Everybody's collaborating just to make sure that the best possible outcome is happening, whether that means you take a back seat or not. It's what I love. So I really love that about our group, is it is, like I said, it's that's something I'm really glad I learned from sports. It takes more than just one person. It is no one person in our group is the reason for any success we've had at all. It is, everybody has contributed, for sure. Absolutely. That's, I think, my favorite thing about us. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious too, because I know when it comes to, you were talking about with this being your form of art, creativity, passion, kind of an expressive outlet, but then when it becomes basically a full-on business of selling tickets and the whole logistical side that's not as sexy, how do you feel like you kind of find the balance where you don't let the business logical side steal from the creativity that's needed?
It's good to, we're lucky to be surrounded with people that are our friends. It's not just, it's not like maybe there's, maybe in movies you see a team being like, no, you need to write a song this way, or you need to do this. Creating the business side never steps into the creative side. It's we all, our managers will give us a push, maybe, they'll be like, all right, do this, you got to get on this, type thing here and there when they need to, but it's never they never ever overstep into the creative process, and we make sure that we don't force the other way, it doesn't work the other way around either. We're not telling, whatever they bring to the table, the business side brings, we're always, they know more about that, so it's constantly just communicating healthily, and if there's ever maybe a disagreement here or there, we just try to, like I said, it's, nobody tries to take the lead on it and say, this is what's happening. It's always just what's going to be the best option. But we've never really had any problem creative team, business team, button heads. No, it's always been one big collaborative effort, for sure.
I'm sure that's really helpful for you too, because that sometimes I think it feels way better to find something for yourself. Even if they, instead of them coming to you and saying, hey, change this sort of style or the way you're playing, and you find that, oh, hey, that actually, I like the way that sounds works for this song. So we've kind of talked a lot about a lot of different of these positives too, and a number of negatives. So when we talk about the challenges, we've said, that grind, just in and out of going to shows, producing the music, COVID, not to mention. What would you say? And you could take this however you want, either as a musician or just as Dillon Basse as a person. What would you say the biggest challenge has been in this pursuit of fulfilling your dreams as a musician?
You got to make a lot of sacrifices. You're gone a lot. There's life goes on without you when you're gone. You're on the road, you're pursuing it, but the people, your friends and family, they're still living their lives. You come back and my brother's like maybe an inch or two taller, and he's pretty. I saw him play basketball the other day, and I was like, whoa, you got good, man. He's killing it. But I didn't. You don't see necessarily. You have to. You miss funerals, you miss weddings, you miss anniversary. You miss birthdays. There's a lot of things that you have to sacrifice, and that's I would easily say is probably the toughest part, is maybe missing some of the things that you wouldn't have. But I would say that it's worth it. This is still my dream, is still pursuing what I want to do. But yeah, there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make.
Yeah, and I think back to, like you said, that self-awareness too, like the sacrifices that you make. I would like to believe that a lot of the decisions that I make for myself in the pursuit of what I'm passionate about, those people would back me up on it. It's 100%. Hard in your mind to process that of I'm making this big sacrifice and not put that weight on your shoulders when that person would want to lift that off of you of don't be burdened that you can't be there. So on a flip side of that, one thing I spoke at Fernandina about 2 or 3 weeks ago to the kids about kind of what I've learned since leaving high school and about creating success. And the first thing that I wanted to tell them was, you have to define success for yourself. Yeah. You're now almost grown, not your teachers, not your parents, not your neighbor. You're going to have to define that for yourself. And we've kind of talked a good bit about what success is for the band and what it's looked like and, the ups and downs. But what would you define as success in what you've been doing and for yourself?
I'd say success is to be able to continue doing what you love, and being able to support yourself in doing so. That is where I've found that I've had success. The fact that I now the band pays rent for everybody. We're slowly being able to sustain what we're doing, and also as long as you're like I said, as long as you're loving what you're doing, I think that is the definition of success. Living life. If you're not happy with what you're doing, I don't know, what are you doing? I think you should be if music doesn't work out, okay, just going to make sure that I'm pursuing something that I love doing. And so far that is where I've been able to find peace of mind and a little bit of success in Flipturn. Is I'm able to sustain now more of just going out and doing what I love doing, and it's absolutely my favorite thing in the entire world. So yeah,
it's exactly how I described it to the kids, because I had a few different case studies of there's people I know that are making $500,000 a year, but they do love what they're doing. And the same guy making 30 or 40 and loves what he's doing, and he's still taking care of his body and his mind and the people around him, whether that's monetarily or just through your presence. That is successful because that person views themselves as successful, right? Yes. So they're kind of fulfilling that notion of what it means for them. Again, that was kind of my whole big thing. It's what you want, figuring that out.
Yeah.
Brian, you have any other questions?
Yeah, I just had one last question can you kind of share with us, what is your mentality to kind of stay grounded, to really appreciate everything that you're going through, but also staying obviously wanted to continue to grow it? Is there a certain mentality that you feel like you have, or that you're constantly reminding yourself along the way?
Yeah. Definitely the mentality of just wanting to get better, at what you're doing, constantly, wanting to make sure that you're not being
complacent or, like accepting like what's going on or, what's happening, just always trying to improve, whether it's, getting better at learning a few new chord progressions or learning like a different, way of singing or just make, the production of your songs, if it's getting better, I think that's the constant mentality that we've been trying to have is just keep trying to get better, never trying to be, happy. You obviously, like, I'm, proud of the music that we've made, but I'm never,
never complacent
with it. No, I want to make sure, that the next project is always better than the last, that the next show is always better than the last. So that's, I think, the mentality that we've tried to have.
Yeah, I love it. Even just 1% better.
Yeah,
each
1%.
time,
and that was a big baseball thing. A coach would always say every day, 1% better.
That's right.
It's like, okay. But, like, yeah, that's absolutely so true. Just because, it adds up. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
it adds
for
up
sure.
over time, So, yeah.
I mean, I think it's definitely prevalent in what you guys have been doing, man. I think the 1% applies, when you go from 10 people in the crowd to 11 to before you know it, you're at 100 and then 1,000 and then
it's
get
cool
up
to see.
just more and more for sure. Yeah. So it's been a thrill to have you here today, man. I know
this
I told
has been
you.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely, man. This is what we love to do, is tell stories, share what people are going through. I mean, you're, like I said, our first musician. We've had just an array of people on here, and I think the coolest part is it's a notion that a lot of what people are going through and what they experience in that pursuit is very similar. We've had physicians, athletes, now musicians, real estate agents, and everyone kind of has these similar things. Mm-hmm. And that's just really what we believe in. It's like there is kind of a blueprint of mindset, habits that will kind of help you get to where you want to be, whatever it might
Every industry is different, but the mindset that you take to it, for sure, should always be, I think, is definitely commonly found. I have a lot of friends that do very different things than me, but, if they are having success there, it's because we have the same, trying to have the same mindsets. So, yeah.
Cool, man. Well, again, tell us a little bit, where can our listeners or anyone out there catch up with your music, your socials, anything of that nature?
You can, any streaming platform you can find us on. We're on social, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're pretty much everywhere. Just Flipturn Band, that's us. Definitely check us out. Check out our, and also, not to plug, but our new album, Shadow Glow, just put it out a few months ago, so definitely check that out.
You're going to want to check it out. I'm a big fan.
Heck yeah.
Oh, wait, real quick, last thing with the Grit Creed.
Oh, yeah.
We're always curious to ask.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so of course, how can I forget, what part of the Grit Creed resonates most with you and why, as you know, our 12 principles?
Easily this one. I am someday going to be what I am now becoming. And that one stuck out the most. There was a, what's his name? Christopher Reeves. Do you know Christopher Reeves, the old he was a Superman in the 80s. And there was a quote that he had that when I saw it or heard it somewhere for the first time, it stuck with me so much. I got it like tattooed on my arm, just because it was so I don't know, I so moving, I guess. But the quote was it's right now I'm blanking. Oh my gosh. But it's like, at first our dreams seem impossible. Then they seem improbable, and when we summon the will, they become inevitable. And I think that when I first heard that, it really resonated with me, just because it was, every day that you keep pursuing what you're doing, you see it becomes you see it, the dream become a little more real, until finally, you're maybe there is that moment of, I did it, type moment, like I said, definitely do not feel like I've had that at all, but I still am in pursuit of, it might have felt very impossible years ago, but, it's starting to feel a little more real. A lot of goals, bucket list things that I've always wanted to do have happened, and, you just keep pursuing it, and the more stuff that you want to happen, it starts to happen, and, it's kind of just like, oh, this is, if you keep doing this, you keep pursuing, keep having the mentality, it's just the picture, everything becomes a little more real. So this one, yeah.
Love it.
Definitely.
Yeah, me too, man. I'll tell you, the music thing one day changes. Maybe you got this those motivational videos might come back out of you in another performance.
Maybe, yeah. Like I said, music's the goal, but the reality of life is, things don't always happen the way you want them to. But, as long as I'm pursuing something that I am passionate about and love, then I'm going to be happy, hopefully. That's the goal.
Well, we've loved watching it, man, and I'm super excited for everyone to be able to hear this, everyone that listens to your music or might get interested in your music because of this. Again, just really appreciate you coming on, being vulnerable, talking about your story. Yeah. I know that out there's going to be people that are wanting to do what you've done, and now they've got the toolbox to be able to go out and do that. So really, really appreciate you being here today,
Dillon.
Dillon.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks, man. Well, that's it for us today at the Grit.org podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Share it with someone you think it would resonate with or impact. As always, we appreciate you tuning in for another episode of the Grit.org podcast.